Who? Who? Oh yeah, we don't. So Amiibo came out today, and normally it'd be like, oh, it's time for Amiibo unboxing. And no, I don't actually have them. But even if I did, I think I'm gonna hold off on that because the Splatoon Amiibo come out in like 2 weeks. And I think I'm just gonna wait for that. Good enough. What's in the news? I swear I've booted up the game once. Oh, extra work is going on right now? Oh shit, I didn't even know. I'll be honest, I don't care about the extra work stuff. I usually don't care about the big mode stuff either. It's such a pain in the ass. So the winner of the last Splatfest, I want to say Team Ghost did win. And Team Zombie didn't get a single point. Which, I mean, after the last Splatfest, I mean, I guess that's probably, you know, yeah, that's probably for the best. I still think Splatoon was cool. So yeah, here we are, back again, Splatoon. You know, let's just jump right into it. Well, okay. So we got a small story and a big story. The big story, we're going to do the small story first, then we're going to do the big story. And then we've got WIBE, standard WIBE. You know, I played a game. We'll talk about that. I still haven't beaten it. And yeah. Okay. But yeah, I honestly, I don't really have much to talk about. But, I mean, to be fair, the one story is a big story, right? There's a lot of different elements, and I spent today reading through the entire article about the MCU. I know strike is still going on, but I think it's okay for us to talk about the bad things that, you know, are one of the many reasons this strike is happening at all. So I feel fine talking about that. But yeah, other than that, yeah, we've got one small Nintendo Switch story about Switch Online. And then, yeah. I really do think that's it. It's not a very complicated week at all. So, yeah. I'm just going to complete this wave and then we'll get into it. I have a Lemonade tonight. I don't actually know if it's a... you know, was it Jello Apocalypse who did like a ranking every Lemonade video? I bet this Lemonade would get maybe like a 5 or 4 out of 10 on his scale. But I don't know. There's just something about it that really hits the spot right now. Yeah, it's like, yeah, this Lemonade is good. Even though, again, I don't think it's actually... I don't know. I'm kind of in a... I talked about this before, right? How I was in a Lemonade age. And the Lemonade age ain't anything big. God, these suckers are going fast. Oh, shit. Okay, yeah, this is... I can totally see how that second wave possible. It's just not the easiest thing in the world. Oops. So I'd love to at least get a rank in extra work, but we'll see. So our first story tonight is about Nintendo Switch Online. So the only reason I bring this up, normally I don't talk about this, right? New Nintendo Switch Online games. I think the last time I even mentioned it was when they added Kirby and the Amazing Mirror. And probably before that was when they added Link's Awakening. It really sucks when they added Link's Awakening, because they added it just as I was getting out of my Zelda phase. Because I was on like a Zelda kick this year, right? I played Link's Awakening twice. I played Link Between Worlds. I played Link to the Past. Played Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. And right as I was kind of like, okay, we've beaten Tears of the Kingdom, I think I'm all done with Zelda for now. Then they added Oracle of Ages and Seasons, which I've still never played. Or at least I've never played one of them. Oracle of Ages, question mark? So it's like, okay, that sucks. And then recently they added Kirby and the Amazing Mirror, which I was just like, okay, cool. I've been wanting to replay that game for a while now. That's a cool get to get on Nintendo Switch Online. Finally. I bet the multiplayer sucks butt. Like, it is a multiplayer game, but that's not exactly good multiplayer. You know, so that was kind of the concern there. But I'm not gonna play the multiplayer. I just played single player. But Amazing Mirror is a very interesting game because it's an open world 2D platformer. You don't really see that many of those. So that's kind of what got me to be like, oh yeah, I should play that. But we got new Nintendo Switch Online games. And they're it's one Game Boy game and two NES games. Nothing big. Oh, they did add Mario Party the other week, Mario Party 3. Which, I mean, that's cool, you know. I really hope they add... I would love to see them add the original Smash Bros. Sometime soon. Because I think they did finally add Stadium 2. Which was highly requested. So yeah, I would love to see the original Smash Bros. Is it good? Probably not, but I'd love to see it. Like, has the original Smash Bros. Held up? Definitely not. But I'm still kind of curious. Okay, we hit the quota. That's what matters. So what are these new games that were added? Well, the first one is a Game Boy game. Castlevania Legends. Now, this Castlevania Legends is not a good game. Everything everyone has told me about it is that, no, this is actually, like, a genuinely, like, bad game. So that's a thing. So, right, on that front, Castlevania Legends means nothing to me here. But the one that does interest me here is the second one, Devil's World. So I swear I was talking about Devil's World the other week. I swear, like, last week, we talked about Devil's World. And like, how it's one of those few games that's from the SNES, or from the NES era. But it was never ported over to America. Because, you know, it was about devils and whatnot. So they never translated the game into English. And even though it's got an assist trophy in Super Smash Bros., it never actually released in North America. Right? The only real remnant, kind of like Captain Rainbow, which is another game I would love to see ported over one of these days. Right? The only real remnant of it existing is something Smash Bros. Related. But, so I was I had mentioned it recently, like, you know, that'd be a cool game for them to add on to, like, SNES Online. Kind of like what they did with the Fire Emblem game a few years ago for Fire Emblem's anniversary. You know, translate a game that was originally in Japanese but never came out. And guess what? That's exactly what they did. They've translated Devil's World, I guess, for what little text it has. And it's now in, you know, it's now available on SNES Online. I don't know if Devil's World is actually any good. For some reason in my memory, it's like a Pac-Man clone. That may or may not be true, but yeah, in my memory, it's a Pac-Man clone. But I think it's a cool get, right? I think that's one of those, like, little unique pieces of Nintendo history that, you know, outside of something like Smash Bros. And the Switch has been really good about stuff like this, right? Bringing back these old games that we don't really, like, that briefly get mentioned, but not really. You know, stuff like the Famicom Detective games, or Another Life Recoded. That's another weird reference game that doesn't really get talked about that much, but it does have its place in, you know, Nintendo's history. And it does, you know, deserve to be talked about a little bit. So I think it's a cool get. Right? The Switch has been, and same thing, the Switch has been generally really good for bringing back dead Nintendo franchises. Because that's not even talking about, like, fucking did I already say Advanced Wars? You know, just a bunch of stuff. We got our first F-Zero game in 20 years. Is it basically just a remake of the SNES game? Yes. But, you know, it's new. It's our first new Advanced Wars in many years. That's a cool get. That doesn't happen all that often. So, you know, I'll take it. I'll take what I can get. I'm just trying to stay alive. Okay, boom, we did it. And then, so the third game is one called The Mysterious Murasama Castle. I'm pretty sure this is an NES puzzle game. I don't know. I have never heard of it. But from what I've been told through the grapevine since this has been announced, it is actually a really good game. Right? Even though I've never heard of it, that doesn't change the fact that, no, it is actually a good game. So that's cool, I guess. But yeah, it seems like it's kind of like that, was it called Fire and Ice from a few years ago? Where it's like, oh yeah, here's this NES game nobody's ever heard of. But on the off chance you have heard of it, guess what? It's actually a really good game. Never did get around to playing that Fire and Ice, but I heard good things about it. Shit. That just pushed me right back into it. I do not plan on doing extra work this whole time. Honestly, if we get one successful run right here, right now, I think we'll probably call it. But, so there's some good gets here. There's some good gets with these NES Online games. You know, there's still, the one that surprises me is Urban fucking Champion. Right, that's one of those games that Nintendo always loves to push on, like, the Wii and Wii U virtual consoles. Urban fucking Champion. But yeah, for some reason, it's not on Nintendo Switch Online. Which I don't know how that never happened, but it did. It never happened. So, yeah, we still haven't got Urban fucking Champion. I don't even know if we have. I'm pretty sure we have Ice Climbers, but part of me would not be surprised if we didn't have Ice Climbers. That's one of those weird things that I would totally believe. But no, Devil's World is a cool get. It's definitely one of those things where I was like, oh, I'll try it out. and then I'll play it for like exactly like 20 minutes and then never think about it again. But you know, it might be a fun 20 minutes. So, yeah, that's a cool get. That's really all I had to say about that. Just mainly because we were just talking about it. That's the only reason. Or at least I swear I just referenced it. Like a few weeks ago. I don't know. We may not have referenced it, like the last time was like 6 months ago. But I know I've definitely talked about it. Just because it holds such a weird place in Nintendo's history. Okay, we hit the quota. Yeah. I don't know, there's still tons of games on Nintendo Switch Online that I still want to see at some point. You know, like, I said Brawl, there's a bunch of weird, like, third-party stuff that I would be like, okay, that'd be a cool get. There we go. We get a successful round of extra work. That's what we're going to call it for extra work. It's way too stressful to do this stuff. 112. I don't remember what the last extra work was, but I'll take 112. The thing I care about more is having successfully completed 5 rounds. That doesn't always happen. So I'll take it where I can get it. Alright, I'll take that and I'll just walk away. Quick respawn's not bad. Let's keep the new stuff. Let's just swap that for chunks. Alright, let's go do some actual, like, Splatooning. So, our next story, we gotta talk about the MCU. Oh, that's good. So, in Variety earlier this week, they put out an article entitled, "Is the MCU in Trouble?" And of course, I saw that. I saw everybody talking about it on TikTok. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to actually read it, sure. It's like that Elon Musk article from a few months back, where I was like, you know what? Sure, is this going to take me like an hour? Yeah, but I'm going to sit down and read the whole thing. This MCU one took a lot less time. I think it took me like 20 minutes. But it's all about, the current state of the MCU. That, just back in like 2018, 2017, the MCU was at the top of its game, making billion-dollar movies. And now, they're struggling to even just make their budgets back. So it's asking the question, like, what happened, and, what's going to happen in the future of the MCU, right? How are they going to go? And that's kind of where it started. So the article starts off talking about Jonathan Majors, who is the actor who plays King the Conqueror. Because if you've been under a rock, Jonathan Majors got in some legal trouble, and he will be going to court later this month over domestic abuse charges. Now, I've heard many complicated things about this, right? Some people saying that no, he is guilty, that right, all this domestic abuse. Others claiming that this is kind of like the Johnny Depp Amber Heard thing, where no, he's actually the victim of this all. So I don't know what the truth is. Again, there's going to be a court's going to decide that, and we'll see how that actually plays out. But for the moment, right, it's complicated. It's very complicated. And I think that's just a good, starting thing. But then it became the question, like, hey, if he's in all this legal trouble, like, the MCU has dropped people for less. So are they going to drop this guy? And Marvel's statement at the time was no, right? This legal trouble, despite all this potential legal trouble, we're not going to drop the guy. And then it was, hey, are we going to recast him? Also, no. Even though everyone always brings up, oh, well, they recasted Terrence Howard. And, like, yes, they did recast Terrence Howard. But how many people have they recasted since then? Like, I can only think of, like, maybe one other. And I don't even think, like, something like Ralph Bohner counts. Because, while, yes, it is technically Quicksilver, and yes, Marvel has admitted that they did want Aaron Taylor Johnson to play the role again. But there's some legal issues there, and I think there were scheduling conflicts as well. Oh, there was a whole myriad of issues for getting Aaron Taylor Johnson back as Quicksilver. But, right, they did technically, even though they kind of technically didn't. It's complicated. It's complicated is what I'll say. I don't know. I mention this every time. There's just something about the second I hit start stream that instantly just clogs up my nose. I don't know what it is. So, it's, okay, are they going to recast Jonathan Majors? Their original thing was no, but then Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania came out. And Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, I think it failed. I don't remember. It might have eventually broke even, but I'm pretty sure it failed at the box office. I'm pretty sure it lost money. And after that movie failed, Marvel was then like, okay, maybe we will shift away from Jonathan Majors and Kang. Maybe instead, they're behind the scenes, supposedly, they're talking about doing Doctor Doom. That's what's going on behind the scenes. There's talks about Doctor Doom, because that movie didn't perform well. Not because of any of Jonathan Majors' potential domestic abuse problems or anything like that, but because one movie didn't do well. But the article also mentions, based on Loki and its season finale, the MCU is kind of fucked. That, right, if they want to switch away from Jonathan Majors and change to, like, Doctor Doom or someone, the end of Loki basically sets up Avengers 5. Supposedly. I think we're, like, 5 episodes in, and I'll be honest, I haven't seen episodes 4 or 5. Not like we'd even talk about it. But, yeah, no, I don't know what's going on in that show. I just really haven't cared. But I guess, yeah, them potentially switching away from Kang, they kind of have to do Kang. The next thing they did was they talked about the Marvels, and right, that's a movie that comes out in about like 10-ish days, maybe less time than that. I think it comes out on the 10th, so I guess it comes out in 7 days. Yeah, a week from today. And right now, it is currently projected to make $80 million opening weekend. It's the movie, like 75 to 80 million. The movie has a budget of over 180 million. So it's basically falling, and that's not including like advertising or anything like that. But yeah, its opening weekend is not looking that well to, make the money back. Because, the opening weekend is usually the best a film will do, and then it just will go down from there. There are a few exceptions. I know, right, every once in a while there's a movie like, was it Paranormal Activity, where its opening weekend didn't do that well, but the more people that saw it, the more it was like, oh no, you have to go see this. Ask your local theater to start playing it. and then it kind of went crazy. I know that's the classic example. I know there are other examples of movies that, you know, didn't do that well at launch, but started doing better, like, in, like, their second or third week. I want to say Elemental might have been one of them. That, you know, it didn't do that well at launch, but then the word got out that, you know, it was actually pretty decent. It happens from time to time. But based on this, right, the Marvels isn't looking to do that well. And I guess for the first time in at least a while, Disney did test screenings. Right? They showed the movie, they did test screenings to audiences in Texas. And audiences walked away saying that, yeah, that movie's pretty middling. Right? Another middle-of-the-road MCU movie, like Quantumania, like Thor Love and Thunder. So that's not a good sign. I have thoughts on it, but I'm not going to say anything because, again, strike is still happening. And basically they get around to saying that Marvel's problem at the moment is that they focus too much on quantity and not quality, that basically at any point in the year, someone will have something superhero related to watch. And that's just become a problem, right? They talk about how Kevin Feige was stretched too thin right now, that he's working on too many things. Because what Kevin Feige is usually really good at is post-production, right? He puts his movies through a rigorous post-production process that usually results in some pretty good movies. But because Marvel is doing so many projects right now, they don't really have the time for that. And that's where you get a lot of these, like, unfinished VFX work. The two examples they list are She-Hulk and Ant-Man. That I guess... I don't remember this specifically. But I guess there were at least, like, 10 shots in the original Ant-Man movie... Or in Ant-Man Quantumania, I mean. That were just complete... That were, like, the CGI was done last minute... And it was completely out of focus. I don't really remember anything like that bad. Like, I remember some bad CGI, but nothing like that bad. But no, I guess that was a thing, right? And, like, even at, like, the premiere, a lot, like, that was the only thing people were talking about, is how bad the CGI was. The other one was She-Hulk, that I guess when the show originally, right, when it originally, like, nearing the end of production, the first time you really saw the She-Hulk transformation was in the final episode of the show, episode, like, 8. But right, they realized that, no, that's a problem. So, they had to rush the transformation sequence to get it back into the first episode, right? To get a transformation in the first episode. And there was this whole story a few weeks ago, and I'm pretty sure we talked about this at the time, about how Marvel's going to start hiring, like, showrunners and whatnot. And a lot of these problems, I feel like, would be fixed by hiring showrunners, right? Showrunners would come out, they would know what they're doing, and, you know, they'd be able to plan all this stuff out ahead of time. But Marvel doesn't do showrunners, because they were trying to do new ways of making television. As part of this, they talked about She-Hulk's budget. That She-Hulk had a budget of $25 million per episode. And that's like more than the final season of Game of Thrones. And, you know, that's maybe another reason Marvel is losing all this money right now, is because they're relying so much on VFX artists. And luckily their VFX studios are trying to unionize. And that's a great thing, and I wish them the most success, because they definitely need it. And they do talk about that in the article as well, right, the VFX thing. But, right, they're putting so much reliance on VFX that, yeah, these shows' budgets are just skyrocketing. And they're costing millions of dollars. Like, you look at, like, something like the FNAF movie that just came out. And that movie had a budget of, I want to say, like, $20 million total for the entire movie. So, one episode of She-Hulk costs more than the entire FNAF movie. And it's already, I want to say, quadrupled its budget. And, like, it had made its budget back before even before the release date. Before, like, October 27th, it had already been profitable. And yet everything on top of that is already a bonus. So Marvel projects are just getting too expensive. And that's they were next. They talked about the Blade movie, and how after several reworks of the movie, they're now. I think they've hired the director of Logan, and they're looking at trying to make a movie for less than $100 million, which it's a start. It's a start, but I guess the Blade movie is a fucking mess at the moment. That it's gone through like 4 different scripts, and one of them. It wasn't even about... The Blade movie wasn't even about Blade. It had, like, a female main character, and it was about teaching Blade, like, life lessons. It's clear that Marvel has no idea what to do with a movie about a vampire who hunts vampires. Which it's such a simple concept. And I guess Mahershala Ali talked about, he almost quit the movie because of all these development issues. Because the movie's trapped in development hell. I mean, same thing with that Daredevil show right now. That's, restarting with a showrunner. Because it's also trapped in development hell. So Marvel's got a lot of problems. But yeah, this Blade thing... a movie that was supposed to release today. When they announced the movie at Comic-Con a few years ago, or San Diego Comic-Con, or whatever it was... It originally had a release date of November 3rd, 2023. So, a lot... I mean, a lot of other things have happened, but that's... Ooh. Next up, as part of Marvel's failings, they talked about the next Avengers movie, and how Marvel's already looking at getting Robert Downey Jr. and Scarlett Johansson back for the next movie. Because, things are going so bad for them that they probably need someone like that. Right, they need that star power back, mostly to appeal to people's nostalgia for the original MCU, which only ended, what, 5... I want to say the battle at the end of Endgame happens, I think it was, last week. I want to say it's, October... Is it the 27th? Maybe it's the 17th. I don't know. It's sometime in October. In Endgame. So, yeah, it's been 5 years since Endgame came out. Technically longer than that. But yeah, they're already talking about bringing back Robert Downey Jr. and Scarlett Johansson. Even though we haven't even gotten an Avengers movie with the current new cast. And I think that's part of the problem as well. Is, because one of the things that the original MCU did well... And people always talk about how, it's this, 23 movies, one giant connected universe. But I feel like that's looking at it with that's too much of a macro scope. I think you need to go a little bit more micro on it. Was it 23 movies, one story? Yes. But it was also a bunch of smaller stories that were divided into smaller segments. And one of the things that I stand by that the MCU is currently fucking up is that you should have an Avengers movie. Not even an Avengers movie. Just a team-up movie. At the end of every phase. And, a lot of people are like, oh, Falcon and Winter Soldier, they do this thing. Right, they set up Captain America as, or they set up Falcon as the new Captain America, Anthony Mackie. And we haven't, and Agent Carter, has been Captain America more times than Anthony Mackie has. And having an MCU movie or an Avengers film that had Anthony Mackie as Captain America, that had other characters, put Shang-Chi in there, put Hulk, put one version of the Hulk, put I don't know, whoever else they have. I'm not going to say Moon Knight. But, other people that they're currently working with. Put Doctor Strange on an Avengers team. Sure, why not? Whatever they're working with right now, the end of Phase 4 should have had some sort of Avengers movie. It didn't have to be Kang, but then it should have been something. Right? There should have been some sort of crossover there. And then I said this at the time, and I still stand by this. Instead of doing an Avengers movie for Phase 5, just do the Thunderbolts. Make it right, instead of... Because it doesn't have to be an Avengers crossover. So make it a villain crossover. Have a bunch of these villains, pretending to be heroes. And whatever Marvel's currently doing with the Champions sounds like fucking garbage, if I'm going to be honest. Oh, we're going to have Elena. We're going to have Red Guardian. I think the actress who plays Ghost dropped out. We're going to have Taskmaster back. That's not what I want to see from Thunderbolts, right? I want a movie about a team made up of villains that, you know, are pretending to be heroes to, like, screw over the Avengers or something like that. Right? I don't just want a hero team with a different name. There's a problem there. There's a problem there, and they could have done something cool, and no, right? Like, I know they wanted to avoid Suicide Squad, in theory, but they just made Suicide Squad. No, I don't want a Suicide Squad movie. I want, like, true villains doing villainy. And, you know, maybe the villain's the same villain, you know? I don't know, they could fucking figure it out. And then, you know, you do the Kang Dynasty for Phase 6. I think Secret Wars is too early, honestly. Not like it really matters. But I also want a Champions in there somewheres. Right? Because they've set up Kamala Khan. They've set up Kate Bishop. They can set up Miles Morales. They've set up Patriot. They've set up other characters who are... Riri Williams is a champion, right? They can set up Vision pretty easily in that movie. They've got Scar, which I know it's not Amadeus Cho, but they can make it work. Right? A Champions movie would be a cool thing, but I just don't think we're going to get that. Or, you know, if we are, I don't know how. They're going to fuck it up somehow. Because right now it seems like Marvel's plan is no. They're just going to spin phases 4 and 5 doing a bunch of setup movies. And then phase 6, we're just going to get all the crossovers. And again, if they shift to Doctor Doom, because right now, I still think, because Doctor Doom I think was always the end goal, because of Secret Wars, which I guess leads to another problem, right, and as soon as this article, within, 24 hours of this article, I've already seen people disputing it, and being like, no, this is fake, some prominent leaker here said that, no, that's wrong, right, this was revealed a while ago. Based on what I know, I'm gonna guess there's a 50-50 chance, right? Probably 50% of this is correct, and the other 50% of this is wrong. Or, you know, it's just, like, the facts are just slightly wrong. I don't know, people who are like, no, this article has been 100% disproven, there's no way. I've heard some of this stuff in the past. Not from, like, personal sources, but even from other, like, prominent leakers. I've heard stuff that agrees with this article. Specifically a lot of the Blade stuff. And even, like, bringing back Robert Downey Jr., right? That's not the first time I've heard that. But yeah, there's a bunch of problems right now. And then one of the other things they bring up, and this is a problem video games have, is not every movie's going to make $500 million. Because I guess that's one of the Marvel's things, is that if a movie doesn't make at least $500 million, it's considered a failure. And that's just Marvel's budgets being way too fucking high. Right? Because that's the problem with, like, AAA video games. Right? Stuff like Dead Space 3 that had to sell, what? It was something ridiculous, like 20 million copies. Don't quote me on that. I just remember Dead Space 3 had to sell a ridiculous amount of copies for it not to be considered a failure. But it's fucking Dead Space 3. It was never going to sell that many copies. They're fucking bananas if they think it was going to sell that much. I know Fallout New Vegas had similar problems. I know Fallout New Vegas also had a Metacritic thing as well that screwed them over. But I think that was about bonuses. Dead Space 3 might have also had a Metacritic thing. That wouldn't have surprised me. But yeah, no, not every game can make, can be the next 10 million sell, right? Not every game can be the next Call of Duty. Not every movie can be the next Avengers Endgame. You need to make smaller movies with smaller budgets that are, only expected to make so much money, but they make back their budget in the process. Again, I just referenced the FNAF movie. It was made on a $20 million budget. They knew exactly what it was going to make, and it actually exceeded that. Right? Not everything has to make $500 million. You need to set up smaller things that are expected to make less money, or else everything will fail. And right now, everything's failing. So, right, Marvel's stepping back from the drawing board. So, right, of course, this article came out on, like, Wednesday. And everyone's like, oh, the MCU is dead. Right? You know, the same rhetoric. And then today, a trailer for the new show Echo came out. And I'm not going to actually talk about the trailer. But here's what I will say. When the Hawkeye show came out, I was like, oh, you know, I said at the time that I actually liked the character of Echo. I thought Echo was actually a pretty interesting character. And especially, like, reading up more about, like, her lore and her backstory from the comics, I was like, no, this character was interesting. So when they announced they were making an Echo show, I was like, oh, you know, that might actually be pretty... That has potential to be good. I was kind of interested in it. Everybody else said it was going to be fucking garbage. That it's a show nobody asked for, and it's doomed to fail. But I was more optimistic on it. And we got a trailer today, we found out the show is rated R, and now all of a sudden a bunch of people are hyped for it, right? That it's Echo, we see Charlie Cox back as Daredevil, we see Vincent D'Onofrio back as Kingpin, and yeah, it's a rated R show. And so all of a sudden now a bunch of people are hyped for it, when I guarantee you some of those people just a few weeks ago were like, why the fuck does this show even exist? We don't need shows like Echo or Ironheart. What a waste of Marvel's time and money. Not everything has to be a $1 billion show. If they budgeted this thing correctly, then it'll all turn out fine. Of course, this is Marvel. I fucking doubt they budgeted this correctly. But I think Echo has potential, but that's all I'm going to say on that. Right, is immediately people were like, oh, MCU saved. And of course, not everybody. There are still some skeptics. I'd like to think... Sadly, most of the skeptics I see are the blue check marks, who are obviously, like, I hate women types. But I'm sure there are some who are genuinely, like, skeptical about it. And that's fine, right? I have my own skepticism about it. But I was, you know... I see the potential here, and I see the potential for Riri Williams as well. I have actually read her comic, right? I see the potential there. There are some issues they have to fix from the comic, because the comic's got problems. But the MCU's usually pretty good at fixing problems from the comic. At least they have been in the past. So, I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, the MCU, I don't know. They've definitely got their fair share of problems right now. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Because the problem is, Marvel also films a lot of these movies and TV show months in advance. So, right, like, I remember when She-Hulk came out, it ends with a whole thing about how Marvel has this problem with making the villain just an evil version of the hero. And they point that out, and I was like, okay, after you've made fun of yourself, you can now never do an evil version of the hero again. And then they immediately turned around and did that. And it looks like they're doing that with the Marvels as well. I don't know exactly who the villain in the Marvels is. I'm pretty sure, I would not be surprised if it's someone they made up for the movies. But it looks to just be an evil version of the hero. So, yeah. Which, again, the problem is the first Marvel's movie kind of had that. Oh my gosh. So yeah, is Marvel in trouble? Yes. Is it as bad as everybody says? Maybe. I don't know. There's a lot of talk about, like, oh, Marvel is, you know, their audience has grown up, and they haven't grown up with their audience. Now, in the past, I have problems with phrase like that, because, you know, I think of the GameCube, that in the game, all the problems around the GameCube that I think are kind of bullshit. So I'm kind of skeptical of that statement that, you know, Marvel fans have grown up, but the MCU hasn't grown up with them. I think it's a little bit more complicated than that, especially because I think part of that is what gets you the 90s comic era, and we don't want the 90s comic book era. The 90s comic book era was fucking awful. I don't care what anybody says, the 90s was a fucking wasteland, filled with nothing but pain and regret. No, we should look back on the 90s in comics with shame. It's kind of, I feel a lot of the same ways about the 90s with music as well. There are some, there's always some good things that slip through the cracks, but the 90s had a lot of problems. A lot of fucking problems. Oh my gosh. Okay, so next up we got some WIBE. So we played Spider-Man last week. We 100%ed Spider-Man. Or, we got the Platinum Trophy. I had a great time. I'll be honest, I had a great time with Spider-Man. Fantastic game. I was expecting it to be good, but I think I enjoyed it way more than I thought I was going to. I knew I was going to have a good time with it, but I had a great time with it. Does it have problems? Yes. Did I still really enjoy it regardless? Yes. Have I overlooked bigger problems in other games this year? I mean, I played Starfield, so yes. I need to play more Starfield. But no, I really enjoyed Spider-Man. It's just fantastic. It's been great. It's been great. I'm so excited. Supposedly there's talks about Daredevil, DLC, and I think that could be very interesting. I'd love to see that. I'm gonna spoiler alert for the end of the game. I'm gonna assume they're going to save her for the next game. Right? Same thing with Carnage. I'm going to assume, right, even though I could see those being DLC things, based on how they're presented in the story, I'm pretty sure they're going to be things for DLC later on. At least if I had to guess. Right? If I were to make an educated guess about these things, that guess feels pretty good. But I think Daredevil would be interesting. I don't know. There's a lot of talks about God of War DLC this week for some reason. I don't know. I didn't actually read the story. I don't know where people are getting this from, but, if it happens, it happens. I would love to, at the Game Awards, I would love to see some Spider-Man DLC, but we'll see. Oh my gosh. What the... That must have just been a flick. But no, and we're going to be playing Miles Morales probably tomorrow. I don't know, somebody told me that it only takes 7 hours to beat Miles Morales. So in theory, if we just focus on the story, we could do the entirety of Miles Morales in a single stream. God damn it. I ran out of ink at the most important part. Yeah, in theory that'd be interesting, but I'm kind of curious about some of the side quest stuff. We are going to be doing New Game Plus. I think I've already said that, because that's one of the achievements, to beat the game on New Game Plus. So I'm going to be working towards that. But no, I'm excited to play Miles Morales. So what else? What else have we played? Alright, what else? So I've been playing more Mario Wonder. I still have not beaten it. I will probably by this time next week, I will have beaten it. I don't have much left in the game. I would say I'm probably 2/3 of the way in. Let's just be assuming special world stuff and whatnot. I would assume I'm 2/3 of the way in, which I don't think is bad. That's not bad. I just I've been busy with other stuff, and then I finally did have 2 chances to play it earlier this week. So it's okay, I'm gonna sit down and I'm actually gonna play, and it's still really good. It's still a great game. My biggest problem with it at the moment is the bosses. And I feel like this is kind of everybody's biggest problem with the game, is that the bosses just kind of they're like Boom Boom from the previous Mario games, where it's just like, oh, we're gonna fight the same boss over and over again. Just, you know, maybe it's a little bigger this time. Maybe it has wings this time. You know, it's just kind of, but it's the same boss over and over again. That's the bosses in Mario Wonder. It's basically just the same boss over and over again, but with slight variations. Now, I don't think the variations are bad. Like, there was one, spoiler alert, I guess, where you fight it in, like, a water level, and instead of having, right, and it has, like, the typical, like, water floor, but then as the magic starts coming in, the water floor turns into, like, bubbles. And, right, there's, like, bubbles floating through the stage. And it's like, okay, that's kind of interesting, you know. I don't know, I guess I just want, you know, this game takes some influence from, like, other platformers. And I guess I would have loved some Mega Man / Shovel Knight influence for the bosses, instead of us just fighting Bowser Jr. a bunch of times. I don't know, and I haven't fought the final boss, so I couldn't even tell you. But I do feel like there are some interesting bosses in there. Or there's potential for interesting bosses. But they just don't go far enough. They're a lot like the Boom Boom fights. That's a good comparison. Ooh. But other than that, I have enjoyed the game. I have enjoyed the level. The level design is so good. The amount of new enemies. I've seen some really impressive stuff where I'm like, oh yeah, this is great. There's some puzzle stages that, oh my gosh, me and like a group of like 3 players online were just stuck in one of those puzzle stages. Because so in the puzzle stage you have to collect like these pieces, and we could find 4 of them, but we couldn't find the 5th one. And it was just a stupid fucking invisible block somewheres. But it took me forever to find it. And like I was trying to tell the other guy where it was, and he just wasn't going for it. So maybe he was missing a different piece the entire time, and I just didn't know. But we were stuck there for a while. But no, it's been a fantastic game. One of the best 2D Mario in years. And I do love me some 2D platformers. Right? Big Shovel Knight fan. I mean, I replayed Shovel Knight the other week. Instead of playing Mario Wonder, I just replayed Shovel Knight in like 2 to 3 hours. And and no, I have not played Plague of Shadows or Spectre of Torment. I definitely thought about it, but I was like, no, I should play some Mario Wonder. I'm bad at playing video. Honestly, that's the one nice thing about streaming, is it actually makes me sit down and play the video game. Like Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. So we played that. That was a weird little stream, man. Just sitting down, playing this game, you know, that I knew a bunch about, but had never actually played before. That speedrun moment, I think, is so good. Just being like, hey, isn't there a speedrunner thing here? And then actually being able to pull it off. I think that was a fantastic little moment. Yeah, did we skip the entire DJ Music Man section? Yes. Do I still think that was kind of funny? Also, yes. So I had a fun time with Security Breach. We are going to go back to it, because I do want to get the other endings, and I do want to do the Ruin DLC. Which, to be fair, I know a lot less about the Ruin DLC. I've only ever watched one playthrough of it. I've never watched any of the speedruns of it. So I am curious to check that out at some point. But we'll get into that. You know, we're going to do Miles Morales 4 first. But, you know, it was Halloween, so I wanted to do Security Breach. So, yeah. So we can't talk about TV show stuff, because I doubt Invincible is unstruck work. I mean, it's technically an animated show, so it might be. I've added Invincible to the strike list. We'll talk about it afterwards. Same thing. I did find out that Five Nights at Freddy's is not struck work. Last week I think I said it was. No, that turned out to be some misinformation. It was not struck work, but I'm still not going to talk about it. I'm just going to add it to the strike list, and we will talk about it at a future time. So that's the plan for that. Oops, I did not want to. We can get a new group. We'll do like 1 or 2 more. So what else? No foodstuffs, because we talked about the chicken sandwich last week, and I haven't. The only place I went was to get a hot dog. And that was it. That's the only other place I've been. And that's nothing special. That was just me wanting a hot dog. Because I don't think there's... Usually new stuff comes at the beginning of the month. But I don't think there was any new stuff I was, like, interested in or, was able to find anywhere. Because I just don't care. Okay, so I guess I'll talk about books. I'm not finished with it yet. But I guess I want to talk about this. So I'm going to start us back a few years ago now. So a few years ago, I got a collection of LGBTQ books, right? Someone I knew at college was like, "Hey, you want some LGBT?" Right? They were basically just giving them out to people, in the department. And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure. I'll take some LG." That's how I got Aristotle and Dante Save the Universe, or whatever that book's called. I got another copy of Mrs. Dalloway. I got a few other things from that, and I was like, okay. And one of the books I picked up one of the books that came in that bundle was a book called The Art of Being Normal, which was about 2 trans teenagers. And I was like, oh, this sounds interesting. Sure, I'll give this a read. And I started it, read about halfway through it, and I just was not I was just not jiving with it. Part of it might have been is that I'm not a teenager. I have not been a teenager in 7 years? Something like that. It's been a long time. So that might have been it. But I don't know, there was just something about the way it was written, the way it talked about its characters. I think I was halfway through the book, and the book had said the word trans maybe once. And I think I ended up coming to the conclusion, especially after the book I'm currently reading, that my problem with it was that it was the characters. It's not that the characters didn't love themselves. The book, you can write a book about characters who don't love themselves. The problem was that the book didn't love the characters. I know that sounds weird, right? And especially with the whole kill your darlings thing. But the book didn't like its characters. And they were all, and I guess that makes it more realistic, right? The book didn't like its characters because the characters weren't proud of themselves. At least to where I was in the book. So I just wasn't jiving with it. Yeah, it just wasn't, I wasn't really getting along with it. And it's in theory one of those things I'd love to finish one of these days. But, I don't even know where that is right now. I probably boxed it up with some of the other college stuff, as I think I did with the rest of those books. It's I don't know where my copy of Aristotle and Dante is either, because it's not on my bookshelf. So that probably made its way into some of my college stuff. But around that same time, maybe later than that, Dominic Noble put out a video on a book called Dreadnought, right, which was about a transgender superhero. And I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll pick that up. So I did. And I have been sitting on a copy of that book for years now. At least it feels like years. I don't know, because I picked it up right when that Dominic Noble video came out. Let me actually see when that video came out. That video came out 3 years ago. Came out in September of 2020. So I picked up the book around that time, and I was like, okay, you know, that seems interesting. I think the second one was out by then. At some point, I picked up the second one as well, just because I was like, yeah, I'll get around to these. At least, did I pick up the second? I think at some point, and I was like, yeah, I'll get around to these eventually. And then I just kind of, you know, they always just kind of kept falling by the wayside. I had other books to read. I was like, I'll get around to this eventually. But earlier was it this week or last week? I think it was like Sunday this week. I got a thing, my Audible, because, you know, I'm also Audible guy. I got a thing where it was like, hey, you've got a new Audible credit. And I have like 3 Audible credits. And I'm like, I have no idea what books to get. But I thought about Dreadnought, because I think I saw it on my shelf, and was like, oh, you know, maybe I should just pick up the audiobook for that. I'm sure that's on Audible. And I went to look it up, and it's actually just free on Audible. Both, I mean, you have to have a subscription, but at least with whatever subscription I have, it was just free, right? I didn't have to pay for it, I didn't have to spend a credit on it. It was just included in my Audible subscription. And I was like, oh, cool. Same thing with same thing with the second book. So both books were there, and I was like, oh, hell yeah. So I started listening to Dreadnought. And that's what I've been listening to since Sunday. I've actually put a lot of time into it. Honestly, I've been putting a lot of time into it, genuinely. And I'm enjoying it. It's got an interesting world, because it's a superhero world. But there's this whole thing about, like, oh, right, heroes are called white cloaks, villains are called black cloaks, and then you have, like, these heroes/anti-heroes that are gray cloaks. There's this hyper technology, which is, like, you know, like super technology that can't be replicated. There's stuff about, right, basically, so the setup is, right, the main character, Danielle, is trans. But, you know, she's still in the closet at the time. But one day, right, as she's kind of, like, sneaking out to, you know, do stuff that makes her feel feminine, she ends up coming across the hero Dreadnought, who was just basically killed by the villain Utopia. So now she basically, kind of like one, you know how like My Hero Academia, One for All is passed down through the generations. Dreadnought works the same way, right? It's passed down through the generations, and it turns the user into their ideal self. Right, what they want to be. I want to say they mentioned at one point, like, if you lost a leg, it would actually, like, regrow that leg. I think they mentioned that at some point. But, right, it makes you your ideal self as part of the power set. Other than that, it's basically like a Superman power, but there's this whole thing about, like, where they can, like, affect momentum, and, like, they can change, like, the momentum of things, and, like, does the lattice of reality. There's some interesting things going on. But, right, so when Danielle gets it, it changes her to look like her ideal self, aka making her feminine. Now, at first, it's like, okay, well, did it turn her completely female? And no, they actually do reveal that, no, she still does technically have an XY chromosome, and she doesn't have ovaries, but instead modified testicles that, you know, produce estrogen. So she's not, like, been turned into, you know, a biological female. And at first I was like, I wonder why, you know, that makes things more complicated. But then the more I was thinking about it, I was like, no, that's actually probably better, because it's more accurate of the trans experience. Like, that's probably, you know, a better, even though she looks, you know, they compare her to, like, a supermodel. Because, right, her ideal feminine body was basically a supermodel. She doesn't like that idea, but, you know, it's how it played out. So, right, she's got this ideal female body. And it's like, okay, that's, you know, that's interesting. She, you know, and unlike, like, my problem with Art of Being Normal is that it didn't love its characters. At least from what I remember. Again, it's been at least 3 years since I've read this book. This book, on the other hand, even though Danielle deals with a lot of struggles, right? Problems with her parents, problems at school, problems with other superheroes, the book still loves her. Even if she does not love herself, the book still loves her. And it gives her moments of gender euphoria. Which is another book, Laura K. Dale's book, Gender Euphoria. High recommendation. It's just it's a bunch of gender affirming stories that is really good. And they put out one recently, Stories of Autistic Joy, that I did pick up and I just haven't read. I haven't read it yet, but I did pick that one up as well. Because I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. But yeah, so I'm enjoying Dreadnought. I definitely feel like it started a little bit slow, but like once things actually start to pick up, once Danielle and I think her name is Sarah, she goes by Calamity, she's like a gray cloak. Once they start investigating Utopia to try to figure out how Utopia murdered the third Dreadnought, because Danielle's the fourth, and her whole struggle with should she even have the name Dreadnought. There's other people in, like, what is basically their, like, I'm going to compare it to the Justice League. Because they've got, Dreadnought was their Superman. They've got Valkyria, who is their Wonder Woman. They have this Chlorophyll person, who personally reminds me of, like, Martian Manhunter, even though they're nothing alike. That's just, green skin makes me think of Martian Manhunter. But they've got Magma, who's, like, a strong man. Grey Witch, who is a bitch, and Doc Impossible, who I'm sure is like a Mr. Terrific or whatever. Right, they've all got their analogs. I would compare it more to the Justice League. They do have an Iron Man, I don't remember his name, but they do have like an Iron Man-like, who, is probably their Batman stand-in, I guess. I don't know, it reminds me more of the Justice League. But, right, she doesn't know if she wants to take the title of Dreadnought, especially because she has so many struggles with them, because, right, Grey Witch is transphobic. The one Iron Man guy whose name I don't remember is kind of uncomfortable with her taking the name Dreadnought because, he was pals with the third Dreadnought. Doc Impossible and Valkyrie are like the two supportive ones. So is Magma, but he's called Magma, but he's a strong man and not a fire guy. Like, he doesn't have fire powers from what I can tell. But, some are supportive. Grey Witch is transphobic, and she's a fucking asshole. She's got struggles with her parents, right? And it's even outside, right? Her dad's verbally abusive, and that's even before, she eventually comes out to him. But no, the book loves its character, right? Even though she struggles with her own mental health and her own issues, the book is always rooting for her. And I've been liking it. I'll probably by next week I will have finished it and started the second one. Which I don't know if there's I'm assuming, I want to say the author said it was going to be a trilogy, so I think there's a third one on the way, but nothing's happened in a while, so yeah, we'll see. But no, I've been enjoying it. I'm glad just finding out that it was on Audible. It's like, okay, cool. Now I'm finally going to sit down and read this. Or listen to it, I guess. I do still have 3 Audible credits, though, and I need to figure out what am I going to get with these. What am I going to get with these? There's... Because I don't even really know. It's like one of those things where it's like, what do I even read? Like, I read weird... it's weird, because I read a bunch of, like, the historical fiction shit. Not even historical fiction, just, like, historical, like, shit like that. Like, shit like Blood, Germs, and Steel, or How to Invent Everything, or, what was the one about... There was another one about time travelers. Right? I don't know, I just find What If, the XKCD book. Right? There's a bunch of, like... I just find fact stuff like that interesting. And then, like, in the past, like, year or two... I would say probably year. That's been a lot more of what I've been reading than, like, an actual, like, like a sci-fi thing. Even though at some point, God, I gotta... There, speaking of other audiobooks, I think I've talked recently about the Brandon Sanderson books, right? The 4 Secret Projects that finally finished. I gotta get around to reading those. I put the first one on my phone... And then I just haven't... I listened to, like, the first, like, chapter. And I just got completely distracted and was like, okay, I'm gonna have to re-listen to this. And I just haven't. That was what, 2 weeks ago, probably? Man, no, Dreadnought's been pretty good. If you got an Audible subscription, see if you can get it from... as part of your subscription, because I've been enjoying it. You know, I have been enjoying it. I mean, I don't even know what else to read. Or, you know, listen to. I equate. You know, I know some people are very picky about the semantics. I think they're basically the same thing. Maybe I should... You know, maybe I should spend one of those credits to get Aristotle and Dante. I should probably... I should probably read that. Because everybody tells me how good it is. And I was always like, yeah, I'll get around to it. And then I just never did. I had a... In a college... I'm gonna assume it was like a... Maybe a, like a... I want to say it was like a 200. Like English 201 or something like that. There was like book groups. And that was one of the options. And I was like, oh, you know, maybe. And then I ended up getting in one of the other groups. What did we even read in that class? I don't even remember what we... I don't even remember what I read. I think it was a graphic novel. Or was that Enrique... Or was that when I read Enrique's Journey? No, I think it was a graphic novel. Was it called, like, something about stars? When the stars are scattered? Maybe that was it. Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember. It's been years now. So, yeah, I think that's what, you know, that's what we're gonna more or less call it tonight. So we'll be back tomorrow with Spider-Man Miles Morales. You know, we'll see how fast we get through that story. Again, kind of like Spider-Man Remastered, I'm not planning on 100% completion. Not even anywhere as close to it, honestly. But we are going to be doing a New Game Plus run. So we'll see how that changes things. But, you know, I'm just looking to do a casual playthrough because I've done it all before. And then, yeah, from there, Security Breach. I would guess we have 2 more streams in Security Breach. One doing all the other endings, you know, going out, killing Chica, doing all that jazz. And then probably the Ruin DLC, which will be the 3rd stream. So I know those are the 2, that's coming up. We are not doing Super Mario RPG. I know it comes out like next week and 2 weeks. I do not plan on doing it. I know there was a WarioWare game that came out today that I do not give a fuck about. And it's, from what the hype around it seems to be, a lot of people do not give a fuck about it. There are some diehard WarioWare fans that seem to care. That, you know, are interested. But for the most part, people just don't care. And I can't exactly blame them. But yeah, so Miles Morales is going to be 2 streams. Security Breach is going to be 2 streams. And then we'll figure it out from there. I know we had other shit to do. I still want to do the Stanley Parable before the end of the year. Because I said we were going to do it back in like June. And then that just didn't happen. So I would love to get around to that eventually. Yeah. And then we've got less than 10 episodes left of In Chat this season. Right? For the first time, I think we're going to do a full 52 episode season this year. Right? I don't see anything happening in the next 2 months, you know. Unless something catastrophically goes wrong. Right? That stops us from doing In Chat. I mean, some things have gone catastrophically wrong, and I still just trucked on and did the show anyways. Yeah, so we do have new amiibos coming out in 2 weeks for this game. So that'll be cool to show those off. I've got the Zelda amiibos that come out. Oh, the Pokemon DLC. Yeah, shit. In December, December, I want to say 14th, the Pokemon DLC comes out. So that's going to be cool. Right? We're definitely going to play that. I definitely have to breed up, my competitive... I have a competitive Duraludon named Mecha, who I definitely have to breed its child. You know, Junior or whatever. I'm going to call it something other than Junior. But, you know, so that way we can turn that into an Arch Duraludon when the DLC comes out. So that's the plan for that. Yeah, no, I'm excited for the Pokemon DLC. The Mario Kart DLC comes out next week. And I guess someone did the math that if you were to play every track in a row, right? You know, taking into account things like, you know, set up time between matches and everything, it would take 6 hours to play every track in Mario Kart 8. That's kind of wild. That'd be a fun charity stream, though. Just get, you know, kind of like those people who do, like, 4-hour, 50-turn Mario parties. I would love to see someone do, like, every track in Mario Kart for charity. I mean, I'd love to do that, but... Yeah, I would totally do that for charity. Because I think that'd be fun. It'd be a good Extra Life thing. Oh, God. I think Extra Life is... I think I saw on Twitter... Extra Life is next week. Because I still follow Jack. And yeah, I think Extra Life is like the 11th question mark? I don't know. I mean, it's for a good cause, you know, that hasn't changed. It's just Rooster Teeth is such a fucking mess. And I mean, I know Achievement Hunter... I saw someone post that Dog Bark, the new... Right, Michael, Joe, Alfredo, and Trevor's new channel is like a month old. And that seems wild that channel's already a month old. I kind of can't believe that. But yeah. So yeah, I think that's where we're going to end off for tonight. Yeah, I think I'm good there. So we will be back next week with, we'll be back tomorrow with Miles. Next week with more in chat. You know, maybe we'll have... You know, maybe... I wonder if when the nominees for Game of the Year for the Game Awards gets announced. I would assume that's right around the corner. So, you know, that... I would assume it's about a month out. And I hope they bump up... Because this has been one of my big problems with the Game Awards for years now. Is I get in most categories only nominating 6 people. But I definitely feel like the Oscars figured something out by nominating a bunch of people for Best Picture. Right? It's one of the few compliments I'll give the Oscars. And the Game Awards needs to especially with 2023 being one of the best years in all of gaming. The fact that they're only going to nominate potentially 6 of them is a fucking travesty. Because that cuts off, so even just making it 9 would be better, right? Because that would cut off so many things. Because, like, again, it's probably going to... Okay, my guess, and this will be the last thing I say, it's going to be Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate, Alan Wake, Spider-Man, Resident Evil, and maybe Starfield. And honestly, Starfield I could see being a bunch of different things. But that leaves out so many... just those 6 games leaves out, you know, Hi-Fi Rush, Mario Wonder, Pikmin 4. Does the Game Awards have a Best Sim and Strategy category? If Pikmin 4 doesn't win Best Sim or Strategy, then the Game Awards are completely fucked. Like, it's... I can't even think of another Sim or Strategy that came... I guess City Skylines 2, which I have not played. I definitely want to, but I just haven't. I could see that winning as well. But no, Pikmin 4 definitely. But no. Resident Evil. Dave the Diver. I know that's technically not an indie game, I guess. But that'd be another big snub. There's a bunch of games that if the Game Awards was just 6, would be completely snubbed. There's a bunch of stuff that'll be snubbed if it's 9. But at least 9's a little bit more reasonable. Especially for this year. This is just such a huge... This is one of the best years in gaming. Right? I know we've still got 2 months left to go. But I feel safe in calling it the best year in gaming. At least, if not the best, it's definitely in the top 3. Because the only other thing that I think really rivals it is like 2007, 2008. Whatever year Mario Galaxy and Bioshock came out in. That was a fucking wild year. I mean, just those 2 games alone, like, oh my god, those are 2, like, 10 out of 10s right there. But yeah, so we'll be back we'll be back with that. Other stuff, you know, still not streaming the Game Awards. I'll do a lot of crazy things. Streaming the Game Awards is not one of them. Even though the show wasn't actually bad that year. Whatever, we'll be back, you know, so I hope y'all enjoyed. Stay tuned for more. Until next time, peace.